Okay, so we hear drive for show, putt for dough, and I just gotta ask, is this saying true? Drive for show, putt for dough. Is it actually true? Yes, putting is where you make your money, so to speak. Putting is where you really improve and get better. But at the same time, it's not entirely true. Let's figure out what the heck I'm talking about. So I want to use the FPO field as an example because there's a little bit more disparity in skill level in the FPO field than there is in the MPO field. And truthfully, most disc golfers, I should say, whether male or female, most disc golfers are closer in skill level to FPO players than they are to the MPO players. So let's consider some of the players in the FPO field, some of the golfers. We have Evelina, and I want you to, as I'm saying these names, think about these players' skills, their strengths, right? Evelina Salonen, Henna Blomroos, Kat Mersch, Haley King, Kona Montgomery. I got to get used to saying that. I almost said Kona Panis. Kona Montgomery. What do all of those players have in common? All of them are incredible at throwing the disc. Every single one of them can bomb the disc. Some of these ladies are throwing the disc 450, 500 feet. They are absolutely crushing. Throwing further than most disc golfers, right? But that is all their strength. What is their weaknesses? And they all have varying levels of weakness with this, but they all struggle with putting. Like, I would say of those 5 ladies I mentioned, Kona, Henna, and Evelina struggle the most. But I've seen rounds where Haley King and Kat Mersch can't really putt. Like they're driving pretty well, they're approaching pretty well, but they're just not making their putts. They're just off. They're not consistently good putters. So, Kat and Haley King are not the worst putters on tour. They're not even necessarily bad putters, but they're not exceptionally great putters. So now think about these next 3 women I'm going to name, some of their strengths. Kristen Tatar, Owen Scoggins, Katrina Allen. All of them throw really, really far. Well, except Owen, and we'll talk about her here in a second. But they throw pretty far, especially Tatar and Kat. They also have been putting really consistently, especially Katrina Allen. I mean, I remember watching rounds where Katrina Allen was missing 10-foot putts. She was the most popular player to have the putting yips. She figured it out, right? Tatar seems to always be really good at putting, even if she has a span of a couple holes where she's just not locked in on the putting green, she figures it out. Own, one of her strengths is putting, but more than that, she's always consistent. She doesn't make a lot of mistakes. All of these players play consistently, especially for the last year and a half. So I want to ask you guys now, as you're listening to this, of these 2 groups, the first group, we had Evelina Salonen, Henna Blomroos, Kat Mersch, Haley King, Kona Montgomery. Second group, Kristen Tatar, Owen Scoggins, Katrina Allen. We're talking about drive for show, putt for dough. Which of these 2 groups wins more? Which of these 2 groups is on the podium more? Group 2, Kristen Tatar, Owen Scoggins, Katrina Allen. Obviously, the 3 of them are better putters than the Group 1 ladies overall. So putting is a huge advantage and can help you score better than your competitors, especially when it matters. But I want to argue something here because I said, yes, drive for show, putt for dough. Yes, it's true, but there's also something about it that's not true. Its helpfulness only goes so far. Putting's helpfulness only goes so far. And remember I mentioned that we talk about Owen Scoggins, and that's what I want to bring up. Owen is an awesome player, a great player. She plays so smart. She is consistent. She doesn't make a lot of mistakes. She lacks power. She's not a big bomber. And, 3, 5, 20 years ago, did it matter in the FPO field if you had a lot of power or not? I mean, even now, if you can putt 70, 80% in the FPO field, you will probably finish like top 5, top 10 in every event, minimum. You might even win some. Okay? But the thing is, when you look at the field and how it's growing, and how we have young women like Caroline Henderson, who are throwing just as far, if not further, than Owen Scoggins already, and is working on the approach game and the putting, and that just comes with more experience in high pressure situations. The FPO field is growing at a ridiculous rate and is getting some amazing athletes. Think about the Group 1 ladies, Evelina, Henna, Kona, Kat Murch, Haley King, all young players. Think about what would happen if you take all of those women and turn them into 80, 85% C1X putters. Does Owen even win? Let alone does Owen even make podium? Is it even possible that if that all happens, if the FPO field continues to grow and improve, you eventually have a time in the FPO field where distance matters, where power off the tee and driving capabilities matter. And so I think that the FPO field is gearing up for sort of a crossing point where as a collective, the women almost need to decide, is driving going to matter or is only putting going to matter? And I'm telling you right now, my opinion, it looks like driving is going to matter. We're reaching a point where so many women are throwing so far that putting helps, but you have to be able to drive. Now, don't get me wrong, putting will always be important. It doesn't matter how far you can throw, you still have to be able to make your putt. And that's where you can make up a lot of strokes on the field if you're a consistent putter. If there's a tough 350-foot hole and you play for the 3 every time, you get the 3 every time, and the people who play for 2 either get a birdie or a bogey, you're gaining strokes on the field. Now, you're losing strokes to some people, but probably for the majority, if it's that tough of a 350-foot hole, that people are bogeying it pretty regularly and you can play smart and get the 3, that works in your favor, But there's coming a time, and I think we're going to see it more and more this season, where players, especially women in the FPO field, if they can continue to throw further and work on that putting, they're going to be placing a lot higher. So, bringing it back to us now. Drive for show, putt for dough is fun to say and laugh about. And while there is some truth in it, at the end of the day, what do we notice about the winners and the best players on tour, MPO and FPO? The winners and the best players have complete games. They drive well, they approach well, and they putt really, really well. Their weaknesses that weekend are minimal, if they even have any weaknesses in their game entirely. But sometimes you have someone have a really good weekend and they win, even if they can't do that again and on repeat every weekend. But they can put it together for that one weekend and win. Minimal weaknesses, they play to their strengths, and the chips just kind of fall their way. So I say all that because I want to encourage you to keep working on putting, and I want to encourage you to keep working on your driving and your approaching. But most importantly, look at your disc golf game and your skill holistically as something that every time you work on a new skill, it's going to affect other aspects of your game. If you work on your driving and you start getting further and further down the fairway, you start hitting your lines more consistently, guess what? You're building confidence and momentum to when you get on the putting green, you're like, I just drove down this fairway. Now let's smash this putt in the chains, and you're confident about it, so you're more than likely going to make the putt. Versus if when you were hardly getting off the tee, you were scrambling to save par, and then you still had a 20-foot putt to make, and you're like, if I miss this, I'm screwed. It's going to be a bogey on a 300-foot hole that's like just straight ahead, nothing crazy. And it's discouraging. And on the flip side, if you struggle with putting, if you start working on your putting constantly, getting better, using tools like the Champ Cap, and working on your accuracy and your focus, all of a sudden that's going to give you more confidence, but also being way more relaxed on the tee. And if there's anything I've learned about teeing off and throwing drives, you throw better when you're relaxed. When you're amped up and stressed about your drive, you're not going to throw well. So if you have supreme confidence on the putting green, it helps you relax on your drive, which is then going to help you throw better off the tee. And when you continue to throw better off the tee, it's going to continue to grow your confidence on the putting green because you're going to feel really good about your game. And so that's what I'm talking about here, this holistic approach to your putting, to your disc golf game. Yes, you need to work on individual things, but don't get so stressed out about individual pieces that you lose the big picture of how everything is working together here and how it's going to make you a better disc golfer overall. So I hope that makes sense. That's something that had been on my mind and I just wanted to share, and I hope it makes sense. I hope it encourages you to work through some of the frustrations you may be feeling and to just know that some days are going to be rough. Other days are going to be great. I heard an audio on Instagram a couple weeks ago. I've been